Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I was just watching Vanderpump Rules, the whole cheating saga, and I was kind of admiring Tom Sandoval's little mustache. I was thinking, that's very Errol Flynn. And then I was thinking about Errol Flynn, and I remembered, I have an Errol Flynn story. Now, a little while ago, I did a bunch of videos about all the genre actors and Star Trek actors and celebrities I've met over the years in Melbourne. And I had fun telling all those stories because we all like to have stories. Everyone likes to tell stories and be a part of things. Um, and I just remembered I had this Errol Flynn story, and it's not my Errol Flynn story, obviously. He died in 1959, I think. Um, but it was my mum's story. Now, you all may not really know who Errol Flynn is. Errol Flynn was a really big actor in the golden age of Hollywood, the 1930s. He played Robin Hood. He did two films with Betty Davis, playing I think the Earl of Essex or someone. The Secret Lives of Elizabeth and Essex was the second Queen Elizabeth film Betty Davis did, and he was her romantic entanglement. And he just was a very legendary character. He was sort of from that era of Valentino and that, the sort of heartthrob male leads and everything. And what a lot of people don't realise is that he came from Australia. Because he was this, had his success in America and he was sort of known as an American actor, but he came from Australia. He did go to boarding school for I think 5 years in London, but he grew up mostly in New South Wales, and he did go to university in Hobart. Now, I grew up in Tasmania, in Georgetown. My mum lived in Ulverston in Tasmania before that, but I think for a while she lived in New South Wales. My auntie lives there, and I think the whole family moved there at some point. I'm not sure. But my mum would tell this story that she worked in the same office as Errol Flynn, and her boss had paid for him to travel to Hollywood because while he was there, he was miserable. He didn't want to be working there. He did all these other jobs because he wanted to be an actor, but obviously he was very far away from Hollywood, being in Launceston or New South Wales or Australia. Either way, he was very far away from it. And his boss apparently paid for his ticket to go to LA to become the Hollywood legend that he was. He was supposed to pay him back. He said he'd come back and visit, but he definitely was supposed to pay him back. He never did. So that was his story, that I paid for Errol Flynn to go to Hollywood and become a big star, and he never paid me back. And I sort of realised it later that the years didn't quite match up because my mum's not that old. She was 79 when she passed away a few years ago, and Errol Flynn left Australia in the early 30s. So I sort of asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, I didn't actually work with him. He worked in the office that I worked in, and my boss knew him, and the people who worked in the office, everyone in the office, knew him, and they talk about him because he was this big famous star then, in the 40s and 50s. So my mum was fairly young when she was working there, I think, when she was a secretary. Might have even been when she was still in school. But yeah, I think it was when she was in New Zealand, in New South Wales, because I don't think she was ever in Hobart, so it couldn't have been when he was in school there. So it must have been when he was in Sydney. And I did look up his Wikipedia and try to do a bit of research, and apparently he did actually get fired from a shipping company in Sydney for stealing. So maybe he wasn't given the money to go to Los Angeles to become a star. Maybe he stole the money, and the boss sort of changed the story. Well, I mean, if he stole the money or if he gave him the money, either way, he did pay for him to go to Los Angeles to become the big star that he was. So I'm kind of curious now what actually happened. But either way, that's my mum's Errol Flynn story. He also got kicked out of school for stealing, allegedly. But he says he got kicked out because he had an affair with one of the teachers. So who knows? But either way, that's my mum's Errol Flynn story, and I just wanted to tell that, and I just wanted to remind people that he was an Australian, and he did primarily grow up in Tasmania. One of, the biggest stars in Hollywood's golden age, was actually Australian and Tasmanian. So feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Yeah, he was an interesting person. I wish my mum had actually met him. But the years don't meet up, so, but whatever. She still had an Errol Flynn story, and it was fun hearing it.